So it's all yours, Joan.
Thank you. I saw that when I got on here, you had a wonderful definition of Stephen Ministry posted. And basically, it's a system for training and organizing lay people to provide Christian one-on-one caregiving to those in our congregations or parishes that are struggling with some kind of life difficulty. The name of Stephen Ministry comes from Acts, where Stephen, one of the followers of Christ, was commissioned by them to provide care to those in need. Back in 1975, a man named Kenneth Hogue, I don't know that I pronounced that correctly, but it's Haugk, who is a PhD and a pastor and clinical psychologist, felt like he needed more help in providing care to those who sought his need. So he trained 9 people in his congregation in St. Louis to do this. He trained them to do that. The 9 people that he trained were so excited by this ministry and how it worked that they encouraged him to expand it. So in November of 1978, he and his wife, who I found out the other day was named Joan, founded Stephen Ministries St. Louis as a nonprofit organization. At first, he used to travel to other congregations to train Stephen ministers, but then he found that they needed more people in that. So they created a leaders training course, and to train those who would act as Stephen leaders and would train Stephen ministers and supervise them in the congregations. There's 3 groups of people involved, of course, in Stephen ministry. The Stephen leaders who are trained by St. Louis, Stephen Ministry St. Louis, to go out and train Stephen ministers. And the Stephen ministers then are trained to give one-on-one compassionate care and listening to those in their parish or in their community. This was not set up just for a parish, but for their community. And then there are, of course, what we call care receivers. Those are those who have come and asked for help that in some kind of life difficulty. Many thousands have been trained in this ministry, and the topics covered by the training include listening with compassion, understanding feelings. There's a large area of the training developed to that. Always maintaining confidentiality and ministering to people in specific situations, such as, and I'll just read some of these. You have some on your site, but grief, separation, divorce, medical crises, terminal or chronic illness, infertility, stress related to being a caregiver, adjustment to disability, loss of job, job transition, anxiety, loneliness, isolation, financial stress. We find that there are many people that, though they are in these situations, find it hard to reach out for help. So it's we are learning that it makes it easier if we actively seek them out. Though we do not indirectly go and say, you need this, we try to make it available so that they can do that. Stephen ministers also have to be aware when there's a situation where somebody has a need that is beyond our care, that so we have a referral list that they could go to someone else. A number of the people that have come to us have been, they have a therapist or something, but we're not counselors. What is shared between the Stephen minister and the care receiver is always kept confidential. We do have what's called a peer group that meets regularly with the Stephen leaders and the Stephen ministers, where we discuss and help each other understand what is going on in the life of a care receiver, but a name is never used. It's total confidential. Total confidential. So even in emails and text, we do not use a name because, as you know, sometimes things can be hacked. So we're very careful not to use a name. An intake of a new care receiver is done by one of our Stephen leaders. And when we feel that the person is the right for Stephen Ministry, because some people may call and want you to do grocery shopping and all other kinds of things. That's really not what Stephen Ministry is. We refer them if they need that, but that is not the ministry of Stephen Ministry. So when they, I've been one who's met with the people and done the intake, and basically through the first year of the pandemic, I met in person, which is really very helpful to sit and talk to somebody one-on-one in person. Generally, since that time, I've met over the phone. But after we assess that this person might be someone who would benefit from Stephen Ministry, I pray about it, and then I consider who of our Stephen ministers might best serve this person. We also always need the permission of the person that they want this, and we ask them if they'll sign a consent form of care. They don't have to sign it, but it's offered. When I meet with them, I usually tell them what Stephen Ministry is, what it isn't, ask them if they have any questions. And I tell them that we do have a peer supervision group, and their situation will be discussed there, but never their name, so that they're comfortable with that, but there's a reason for doing that. Let's see. We tell them about the confidentiality. And generally, a Stephen minister will meet with their care receiver once a week for about an hour, though sometimes it's more than that. And they are free to call them if they need to. And we have our peer supervision group. We start with a prayer and we end with a prayer. And you know, we just always keep all of the care receivers in our prayer, the whole group. In 2015, 3 people from my parish at Queen of Peace attended a week-long session in Pittsburgh. It was, I don't know, 7 days, and it was very intense. Our pastor, Father Tim Hickey, had been an associate pastor in Chicago, and he was very impressed with the program. So he put out in the bulletin if anyone wanted to attend a workshop telling us what Stephen Ministry is. So when we went there, we decided we'd like to do that. We went back to him, and 3 leaders emerged. And so after we went to the training, we came back and we decided first thing was how do we recruit Stephen ministers in the parish? And some were referred by the office, some just we asked people in the parish. I don't remember if we put it in the bulletin or not, but we managed to recruit about 15 people. We had, I think there were 4 men among that group. And we did a training session starting in January of 2016, which went until May. The training is 50 hours, and it covers everything, feelings to difficulties to grief and everything. It's very extensive. So we actually began with our first care receiver, I think, in May or June of that year. Since that time, we've had probably about 55 people go through the program, which doesn't seem a lot for that period of time, but what I've learned from our pastor is that this is a ministry that kind of ebbs and flows. Currently, we have 8 Stephen ministers, and we have 12 care receivers. So there are times when no one really comes forward. As I said, sometimes it's hard for people to ask for help, but they're there and they know it's there. So we periodically put things in the bulletin to let people know. We have done several workshops for the whole parish over the years. One was on loss a few years back, and we had a speaker for that. And then we also did one on resilience. So they were very helpful to let the parish know and to just say what we felt was important. We have had some continuing education for our Stephen ministers. We haven't done anything recently, but we have had a speaker come in and speak on the dying, on aging, emotional and spiritual awareness. So overall, a Stephen ministry has touched or has been put into at least 13,000 congregations. Over 1.5 million people have benefited from it. It's in the US, Canada, and other countries. And basically, that's just an overall. I see that Donna Davis, one of our former leaders, is with us. And if she would like to add anything to that, I'd be happy for her to do that. Donna?
Trying to figure out how to unmute myself. I think you covered everything very well, Joan. I just want to again emphasize what Joan said, that it's confidential in every possible way, and it can cover any kind of difficulty or loss. So sometimes people are hesitant to come forward if they're feeling lonely, or something that they consider minor, but we know that in their life it isn't minor, and it may be very temporary or it may last some time. Some people do meet only once every 2 weeks instead of once every week. That's for the Stephen minister and the care receiver to decide together what will work best. But it's a very close relationship of walking together through a difficult time. And that's really all I have to add, because Joan really covered everything. Perhaps people have other questions.
We do have one question. Do any conflicts arise as people might be of different Christian religions, denominations?
No, we really welcome anyone. Even though it's designed as a Christian caring, and we also ask the care receivers if they would like someone to pray with them. Some want that and some don't, but anyone is welcomed, any religion.
Any religion or no religion.
Or no religion, true. Thank you, Donna.
Do you visit hospitals or nursing homes?
We have, if the care receiver's there. We don't just normally go there, but we have had several in hospitals.
Now, it sounds like you're talking about a one-on-one relationship between the minister and the care receiver. Do you ever provide this for couples or families? Or is it always one-on-one?
I would think that we haven't had a couple, but I would think that would be all right. I'm not sure that would work for a family. I don't know. Donna, what do you think?
It's not designed that way. It probably wouldn't. Um, we have had one instance of it being a couple, kind of, because they were homebound and the Stephen minister came to them. They were quite elderly and homebound. That's the only incidence of even a couple. It's really not meant for families.
That's why I said the couple, because we did have that one couple and they were quite isolated and couldn't get to church because of his disability mostly. So the minister really ministered to both.
Do you have ministers covering the entire DC metro area?
No, we have had people, we have had several from as far away as McLean. I think if someone called us from there, it might be that there's a Stephen ministry closer to them, but I don't think we turn anyone down.
So it sounds like the care receivers, it's not a, once you're involved, it's for the rest of your life. It sounds like it just tends to be until you help them through whatever the immediate issue is that they're dealing with. So how
Yeah,
long does that typically go on?
that varies. We have had some that have been less than 6 months, and we've had some that have gone on for 5 years, almost 5 years.
If someone wants to contact the ministry, how do they start that process?
They would contact me at my email or my cell phone number.
Okay. And I don't know if you're okay with us putting putting that in the chat so anybody that is on the audience. Okay. Liz, if you could dig that up and post it. Is the ministry growing, you think, or has it kind of reached saturation?
No, it ebbs and flows. In fact, it had been, I think back about in June, we were concerned that we hadn't had any new care receivers in 6 or 7 months. So we did what we called a think tank and asked one of our Stephen ministers who is skilled in putting things like that together. And we got all together and decided on new ways to try to attract care receivers, and tried to find and elicit people in the parish that might be on the lookout for someone who might need that, like an usher, someone like that may be able to say, have you thought of this person? And after June, between June and now, we just had a new one, 7 new care receivers. But our pastor told us that, and I met with him recently to talk over some things. And he said from the beginning that it would ebb and flow. I think I look at it now as a group of people who are always there, may not need them for a while, but they're there for the parish in case someone needs them. And it's gotten to be a lovely community of people when we come together. It's a very lovely community of people supporting one another.
Joan, I was going to ask a question too about, now, you mentioned your parish several times now. Is that a particular religious denomination, but it has to be a Christian? Is that that the Stephen Ministry is part of a Christian congregation, or are there others? Because I belong to a Lutheran church and I know there's Stephen Ministry there, so I didn't know whether it has to be a Christian denomination, and that's what Stephen Ministry is part of, or I didn't quite catch that.
That's an interesting question. Because it provide it, it's its purpose was to provide Christian caring on a one-on-one basis. We're Catholic,
Okay.
but anyone is welcome, as I said earlier. I don't know if, yeah, I don't know, Donna, what you think about that. What would,
Um,
out if another,
we have had care receivers who are unchurched,
right.
and denomination does not matter
But
at
the,
all.
but the
Um,
question is what, I think, Donna, the question is, could a church that isn't Christian do this? We welcome
Oh,
everyone. We welcome everyone, whether they have a religion or not. But I don't know if Stephen Ministry itself.
would train,
Yeah.
train.
Yeah, I would
Oh,
think they would. I don't know, because they talk about this is for the community, so I don't know why they wouldn't, but I don't know the answer to that.
it, it is, the training is Christian focused.
Right.
For leaders, the training we went to for a week was definitely Christian focused. So now an individual Stephen minister in meetings with someone, as Joan said, will ask if they want to pray with them. And if the person does not want to pray with them, they don't. But the training is definitely Christian focused.
Okay.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a two-part question. It's like, you know, my familiarity is usually Stephen Ministry is associated with some kind of a Christian church. Obviously, Joan said that she's Catholic. As I said, I'm a Lutheran, and I'm familiar with the Stephen Ministry in my church. There may be in other Christian churches as well. So that's, you know, so if somebody wants to be a Stephen minister, do they have to be a Christian? So I guess that's part of it. But then the other is that if one wants to see a Stephen minister, do they have to be a Christian or not? So
No,
it's kind of a two-part.
definitely
Okay.
not.
Gary, back to you.
Yeah. Well, hang on a second. I'm gonna post Joan's email.
Okay.
You'd mentioned earlier, Joan, about, if somebody calls and they want help with groceries or, services of some kind, you'll make referrals. Do you have any kind of official or semi-official relationships with Fairfax, adult services or other organizations to whom you would make those referrals? Or is this just, I know somebody who knows somebody who's can maybe help with that?
I have a list in my book of different organizations that we could refer them to. I don't think we've ever had to necessarily, but if they're looking for food, of course, Queen of Peace does a food bank, and once a week. And I think the church gives out like 650 bags of groceries weekly. So that's always something that if they're in need, and we have had several people that have asked for that.
Okay. And Joan, could you give me your phone number so I can put that in the chat?
703-608-5059.
703-608-5059. Got it. All right. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
I guess I would also ask is there any way that people can, I mean, obviously this is a good opportunity to get the word out, but how is there a organized way to get the word out about Stephen Ministry, that it's available, and how folks can connect with that if they need the services?
Well, within the parish, we have brochures, and we had one of our Stephen ministers do a flyer. And of course, we advertise it within the church and, the clergy announcements sometimes, but I don't know, community-wise, other than you have someone on your staff that has spread the word there, I think. But we haven't advertised it out in the community. Might
Is
be,
there a website?
yeah, we have,
Yes.
it's on the website.
Okay.
That's a good thought, though, Cheryl, about.
Yeah, because I mean, you are one parish, and there are many, many parishes and many, many congregations in this area. And so if there was more of an organized Stephen Ministry, I don't know, chapter that reaches out to other folks to let them know. I just saw that Jean Rede mentioned something about Arlington Neighborhood Village refers people to the Stephen Ministry, which is good. But if you're not a member, you don't know, or you're not in the parish that you are, belong to. So I was just wondering if there was a larger kind of format for getting the word out about Stephen Ministry.
There are
Since it's
some
such a
other
good service.
Stephen, I'm sorry, Cheryl. There are some other Stephen Ministry congregations in the area, which Donna attends a meeting with. It might be something we could do that way, Donna, about within that organization of, they meet together, ways to publicize it outside into the community.
There's an organization of Stephen Ministries that want to participate, that meets quarterly of different churches. As far as I can recall, they're all Christian churches. I don't recall any other churches, but it would be possible. But anyway, we meet quarterly and share information about how to publicize and things like that. So that's a really good point, Cheryl.
Nowadays, with technology, it's a good way to get the word out. So that's
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have another question. Are you aware of other programs offered by other churches, synagogues, mosques that are kind of analogous to what Stephen Ministries do?
There's one being offered. There's a Stephen Ministry at St. Mary's in Fairfax. And they recently I have a group there, and they have told me that they have another program coming up that's trying to help people almost sort of in the same way. And of course, somewhere, like Haven, of course, is, helps those who are in serious illness. So that's been advertised in our church lately, and it's similar in a way, but they have more specific. It's more specific to those who are ill and dying. It doesn't address some of the things that Stephen Ministry does.
Do you have ministers that are bilingual, or what different languages can you deal with?
We have one who's bilingual, Spanish, from Mexico.
And because I attend that quarterly joint meeting with other churches, we sometimes put out a message saying, we need a Stephen minister for this, or this situation. For instance, if it would be Vietnamese speaking, or a man, if we don't have a man available to meet with a man who came forward. I think one thing we haven't said is
Yeah.
it's gender specific. Men meet with men, and women meet with women. So there's no possible conflict. And so often there are messages saying, we need a female Stephen minister. All of ours are busy. Do you have someone available? It could be also for a language. Do you have a Stephen minister who speaks this or this? That's the advantage to being connected with other churches.
I'm glad you brought that up, man to man, woman to woman. And one of the things that we get not concerned with, but we wonder about at times, it's we don't get many men care receivers. It's rare. We in all these years we've probably had 4. So we're trying to find ways to entice men to ask for our ministry.
Do the ministers ever have more than one care receiver at a time, or is it typically just one at a time?
They right now, there's 2 of our ministers with just one, but one is carrying 3 and all the others have 2.
One thing that I was wondering about also is that do Stephen ministers often have some kind of background in counseling, maybe either a social worker, maybe it could be a nurse practitioner, maybe even a physician who's retired. I guess I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about the kinds of people who decide to become Stephen ministers. What compels them to want to take on this this activity?
Yeah, we've had 2 or 3 people with psychology backgrounds, Donna being one of them, counselors at school, in high school, different like that. I'm a nurse by profession. We haven't had a doctor, but one is a director of a preschool program, really outstanding people that with their backgrounds of knowledge. Though, as I said, we're not counselors, we're meant to be listeners.
Right, right.
Do you do background checks on the people who meet face to face with the care receivers?
Background checks on our Stephen ministers, you mean?
Yes.
No. We interview them all at the process. In the beginning, we interview them and their about their history and stuff, but we've never done a background check. No.
They are known to our pastor and to the most of us. So we've never felt the need to do a background check of anyone.
Has there ever been any kind of experience where a Stephen minister is assigned to a person and it's just not working? I mean, somehow the chemistry just doesn't work, and either one or the other is just not happy with the situation. Does somebody step in or start over, or what happens?
We have had one situation like that where it for a particular reason didn't work very well. So she asked, the person asked to step out of that role, and someone else took over, and that has worked well. And the person who stepped out of it has just worked better that way.
Right.
So certainly, sometimes that will happen. That's the only time that's happened, actually.
You talked about putting out calls for ministers, we need a female minister or a male minister. How often, or is it ever the case that you're not able to find somebody and you have to tell somebody, look, I'm sorry, we just can't find you a minister right now?
No,
Mm-mm.
no, we've never had that. We've had a couple people come forward that they really weren't looking for Stephen ministry. They just wanted a ride somewhere, or some other reason, but it wasn't really what they were looking for.
So Gary, I don't know if we have any other questions or not. Maybe today we can um, uh, stop a little bit earlier than we sometimes do.
Yeah,
do you
why
think?
don't we throw it out to the audience and see if anybody's got anything else they want to ask?
Right? Or any other announcements? I don't see any hands raised here or whatever. Well, Joan and Donna, we certainly want to thank you for your presentation about Stephen Ministry. Oh, I see a hand. Oh, I see that's an applaud there from Dolores. So I couldn't tell if it was a hand raised or an applause. But thank you so much for your presentation about Stephen Ministry. And obviously there's information in the chat. And so next week, we will be talking about Arlington's drinking water. I mean, that one certainly sounds like an interesting topic that people would be interested in. Our guests will be Regan Carver and Amani Isa, who are engineers with the county's Water, Sewer, and Streets Bureau. So you'll learn everything and maybe more than you even wanted to know about Arlington's drinking water. So hopefully there will be a lot of people who will join us on the show. So unless we have anything else to say or comments to make, I think we'll adjourn early and people can get about their business for the day.
Well, I'm glad to learn about this coffee and conversation. I may join you in the future.
Please do.
Always welcome.
We'd
Thank
love
you.
to have you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll add my thanks to Cheryl's. This was very interesting and informative, and you guys are doing tremendous work. So
Yes.
it's always nice to hear about organizations like yours that are doing such good work in the community.
Exactly. So,
And I'm glad to hear about all these villages that I didn't realize that. Thank you.
All right.
please
Well,
let us know if you need more information.
Yeah, I'd be glad to have more information and send it to me.
Okay. I don't know if Liz will send some more information to you or what you need, or you can check on the website. Did you get that website? This is anvarlington.org.
I think if
What was
she,
it, AMV?
if she
Yes.
calls the ANV office, the phone number's on the website and they're far
Okay.
more qualified to answer those questions.
Right.
Thank
Right.
you.
Please do. And share that information with people in your parish.
We will. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your interest.
Okay. Have a good week.
You too.
You too.
Thank you.
bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.